My name is Cait Leavey. My dad was a lieutenant at Ladder 15 at the South Street Seaport, and his company is one of the first fire companies to respond. And I lost my dad when I was 10 years old.
We met at America's Camp. It's a camp for mostly 9/11 affected kids, and it was a great camp. Cait was a very outspoken, leader throughout the camp.
She hasn't changed much?
Yeah, she hasn't changed much, and she was always, ahead of everything going on. So after my college days and graduating, I landed a job in the city, and, Cait turned out she was also living in the city at the time.
Yeah.
So we kept in touch. We see each other every anniversary. Cait's always coordinating the 9/11 events, and I always wanted to get involved. And Cait's the one who kind of took me under the wing, and that's why I'm here.
I have memories of going into town with my dad, and we would go to the supermarket, and we lived 3 blocks away, and it would be like an hour trip because you talk to everyone. And my mom grew up in Pelham, and she would say that my dad knew more people than she did, and that's just who he was. He was just a family man. He talked to everyone. We would go into the city and go on family field trips and visit him at the firehouse, and he loved taking us to the firehouse, and he called it his second home, and it really was a second home to him. I love hearing all the stories of the people that he touched, and and how he just how he was in the firehouse was just very much how he was at home. He wanted to be a mentor to all the guys and try to fix everything and tell these stories, and and just what it meant to just have these incredible values. We called him Mr. Mom because he would try to adjust his schedule to always be there for us, for our soccer games, our softball games, baseball games. And for me, him and I had a really close connection because he would try to pick me up from school as much as he can, and I would stand at the, at the schoolyard, I remember, after school, and I would wait for him, and he sometimes was late because he was talking to someone on the way, but I would hear his chain a mile away, and I would see him come down, and my dad was very tall, and that was just the way that he was. He just had this infectious smile and this way of leaving an impact on people, and that is how I remembered my dad.
I remember that morning. It was just, one of those mornings, getting ready for school, following your daily routines. And my dad commuted from Long Island, and it was about 2 hours door to door. We're pretty far out east on Long Island. So he would leave pretty early to get to work. So, my mom made her rounds. She dropped off our 2 older brothers. They were a little bit older, so they went in earlier. And then she would drop off the youngest 2, and that was me and my little brother. And as we were driving to school, we knew something was going on. My mom was she was just kind of sad, I guess, on the way to school. So we knew something was up. And as we're getting dropped off, one of our friend's parents come out to school running, and she was good friends with my mom at the time, and she mentioned that the towers had been hit. And I think this just confirmed that something, bigger than expected was going on. And being 7 at the time, and my youngest brother being 5, we went into school that day, and we didn't know what was going on. My mom's a tough, strong, independent woman. So her being sad in front of her kids definitely, sounded an alarm. My dad was the youngest of 6 brothers and sisters, so you could say he was the funny, strong, athletic one. I guess, playing with all the older kids growing up. He was always the athletic one, so he was very passionate about his sports. I remember at the time, it was my birthday, and my favorite player was Allen Iverson, and he was having this, career season, and I wanted his jersey so bad. And I remember my dad coming home from work. We'd wait outside playing basketball, and he had the jersey, and I went running. I didn't even say hi to him. I just put the jersey on. I was so excited. But that was my dad. My dad was a family man. He cared about his family, and he did everything he could just to make his family happy.
My mom is like, she's just my hero, just like how my dad is. She's been through a lot in life, and how she carried herself after 9/11 is just so admirable. I remember coming home from school and my dad not being there to pick me up, and I usually would walk to my babysitter's house, and I remember a lot of people were there, and I spent some time then going home, and my brother pacing the house, listening to the radio tapes, which at the time I didn't know. The reason I was listening is because he heard my dad's voice. And my dad was getting people down to safety and was talking to his men. And so when my mom came home, I remember she was just very clear about keeping me away from the TV, keeping me away from the media. She had said to me, "We don't know where he is. I know he'll be home. He loved the Twin Towers. He would want everything to come home to you." And after 2 days, my mom said, "I think that he's up in heaven and he's watching over us." And those like that period of time was difficult, especially since being the youngest. I was 10, my brother is 16, and my sister's 26, and I really wanted to be part of the conversation. I really wanted to understand. What I do remember is, the stories of people coming and just the impact that my dad had on my community. And his funeral was like absolutely incredible. Like the amount of people that came into our town. I wrote a letter to the mayor, and my best friend wrote a letter to the mayor, and he came to my dad's funeral, and I wrote a poem, and it was his birthday, and that was really touching for me. I was really quick to just say, yeah, this thing affected me, but I really want to take it and honor my dad. I want to see the positive out of this, and how I could rise above and not let fear dictate my life. And I think that I did a lot of giving and service all through my childhood, and it definitely caught up to me in adulthood, and I did a lot. That's why I was so fascinated by trauma and how trauma affects our lives, and understanding child development, and just how we all take trauma into different ways. But I think what was the most beautiful thing is how trauma can have such an impact on how we turn our story into something beautiful, and learn from it, and grow from it, and educate others. I'm allowed to have those sad days and those difficult days. I think that more recently what's been really helpful for me is remembering the family and the impact of people my dad had on his community, and that specifically being the firehouse. And I actually live close to my dad's firehouse, and what's really beautiful is that they really have become a family to me. I just moved recently, and they were there in a heartbeat to help me move, and those little things make such an impact, because it makes me really miss him, not having them there for those big milestones.
Just like any tragic event, I think there's some good that comes out of these events. For me, it was all the support and love we got after 9/11 from family, friends, community members we didn't know. So I guess all that love and generosity throughout the community was, very overwhelming. And we saw this just as young kids, so we thought that was just so great. I think some advice I would give, kids that go through something, it's just don't be afraid to reach out. Other people are going through things that, maybe we don't know exactly, but there's always people that will listen. There's always people that want to listen, and there's always people that, can help you out.
after 9/11 when people would come up to me and use that word hate and animosity, and I mean, I almost want to put my hands up and like be like, put a shield up and said, no. It's just not what I feel like I can speak to this. It's not what I know our dads and, you know, those who lost their mothers and uncles and other family members would want for us. Would want for us to be carrying on. I think about my dad, and he was so accepting of learning about other people's stories and their cultures and their families, and you know, it really led me to be curious and to, just like what Frank was saying, is to reach out to other people. And I think it's also just such a credible moment 9/11 was for us to just see how, despite all of our differences and our views and everything, like how we all came together. And it just felt, there was just this like incredible bubble of love. The way that we can, you know, promote more understanding and for us all to come together is to be an example of that. Yeah. And yes, some pretty awful things have occurred, but also let's set an example of how we can be the leaders in this, of what it means to put down our differences and learn how to understand one another. I went to a camp called Project Common Bond, and I met other teenagers who lost someone to terrorism, and I just remember being in a circle and just sitting in a room, and every single person in there was from a different country, different culture. I mean, some people were sitting next to someone who, you know, in their country, people use this word hate for their culture or their background. And how we were sitting in this room and we were setting this example of like, we don't want to promote that. Like, what if it looked like for us to just engage in a dialogue and show how this is possible? How, yes, we may have our differences, but we can also set this example of showing what it means, you know, to promote, you know, kindness, even in just the most smallest ways.